Hi everybody. I just woke up and it's around 6 a.m. and I thought, why don't I take you guys on a self-care solo day either at home or around the city and show you how to enjoy company with yourself. And I thought it'd be a good little reset because yesterday was Sunday, but I didn't get to have my Sunday reset because I had such a weird sleep schedule with waking up early at 5, which isn't unusual for me, but I have to sleep early, which I did not. And I was out all day in the sun, so I was really tired when I got home and pretty much immediately fell asleep, actually on the couch. But I'm just here watching the sun come up because I've been awake since 3 a.m. But I decided to go into my room and just sort of sit and reflect just in the early mornings before anybody is up. Because it's something I like to do, but usually I'm not up at 3 a.m. And self-care and solo dates are something I usually do, but I thought, why don't I combine the two and show you how I like to do it? Because I think that, it's important, the relationship with yourself, but I think that the most important relationship is with yourself. So it's just been a few minutes later, but I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Leanne, and I want to welcome you with what I decide I'll be creating. So I just wanted to show you guys my dress that I wore yesterday. I think it's kind of funny that I fell asleep in it because this is obviously not pajamas. And although it looks comfortable, I was worried about ruining it in my sleep because it does get wrinkled easily. But I think it's also kind of funny that you can see on my wrist this rubber band that I actually had from a sandwich from yesterday. I just left it on my wrist. And I just think it's funny because I don't usually fall asleep on couches in the middle of the day and then wake up all the way to the next day. But this is my dress and I think it's cute. It's like a summery summer dress, of course. And it's like very light and when it's not very hot wearing it. And I think it'd be cute for today too, but I just want to wear something different because I like to change what I wear every day. But that's the dress. So I think an important part of self-care in a solo day, especially combined, is having a morning routine that helps you set your day, even if you didn't get to do your night routine or your day was a bit chaotic or hectic the day before, even if you just missed out on your routine or schedule of the day. And I usually do my skincare mostly at night, but since I missed that last night, I'm going to do a bit of some of that today. And usually my products are very minimal, but I'll show you what I use and how I sort of get ready for the day and that process because I think that is an important part of self-care and feeling good and being comfortable with yourself is the moments of peace you have with yourself and the sort of pockets of time and peace alone in places that make you feel safe and comfortable. So in the bathroom right now, and these are some of the products I use, at least for today. I don't usually use a cleanser. This one I use is new, but it works really well for me with my sensitive skin. But I don't usually use a cleanser in the mornings just because my skin's so sensitive. I really only need it every other day or at night every day, depending on if I just wash my face in the shower. And of course, this is my trusty lotion. I use this one. It's good for eczema and sensitive skin. Vaseline's good. And hyaluronic acid is also very good for sensitive skin. I like to keep it very minimal. But I do have other products I recently incorporated. But I think that it's very important to just do what is good for your skin. And for me, I have very sensitive skin, so I just have to keep it as minimal as possible. But as you can see, my hair is still messy, and unfortunately, in the videos, because I want to get that sunlight in when I woke up. So I just washed my face and did my skincare, but I'm still deciding if I'm gonna go out and if I should put my sunscreen on, because I'm very adamant about skin protection. I always have some type of layer or hat or sunscreen on, but it's going to be 90 degrees, so even without the sun, it's gonna be very hot, and I'm more of a cool, crisp kind of weather kind of person, ideally, just because I love layers and I love the fall or spring that has weather like that, and even sometimes summer has that. But you could enjoy summer whether it's at home or in the city or wherever you live in whatever your area has. And I think another part of a morning routine is the different things that you do that you enjoy. And one part of that for me is getting ready. And that includes things like picking out your clothes or making some type of drink in the morning. I like matcha. It's a hobby I've had for a very long time. Not just making it, but I've always liked green tea flavored things like green tea boba or matcha lattes or green tea frappuccinos from Starbucks even. So, making it at home is part of my routine, and I think a way you can incorporate self care. So, I just brushed my hair, and I'm glad that I did because it's like very dark black. So, when it's messy, you can tell really easily, and it makes me feel more put together because I just like it smooth for myself because I feel like it enhances my very straight, like darker hair. And I just think it looks nice, and that's part of self care is just making yourself feel put together and doing something that you enjoy. And of course, it looks visually more put together for myself, and it also is good for your hair care. I found this stand I found the other day, and I just think it's really cute. But I thought that it was sort of necessary for my bathroom to store some of the new products I've gotten. And usually, as you can see, I don't buy much makeup, but I decided for my birthday that's coming up soon to sort of get myself some birthday gifts. And I think part of self care is not necessarily buying things, but just doing stuff that makes you feel good and treating yourself for things you wouldn't usually get. And knowing that you're just worth it. If that's something that you want to try out, it's okay to pick up some type of hobby or product that you think would make you or your life a little bit easier or happier. And even though I'm not much of a big makeup person, I barely wear it to school anymore. I do like blushes. I do have a couple right here. And then I also have lip products, which is what I probably wear the most often. And I decided to get lip glosses to try something new and some new brushes and this lotion that I've been trying that smells really good and it's quite strong. And even though it's fragrance and I'm sensitive, it's the pistachio cream one by EOS. It doesn't really affect me too much. I can't usually use fragrances, but it doesn't seem to be irritating my skin. And I think that that is a part of self-care. It's okay to splurge on yourself once in a while, even though I am more of a practical person usually. But I just thought the setup is a little cute. And so I'm just showing this as an example of something that you could do for yourself. It's also practical because if you get a little stand for your bathroom. These are some daily prompts that I've been doing in the morning that I've gotten inspiration from videos online and YouTube. And I think it's really good to go through when you're brushing your teeth or when I'm doing my skincare, and it helps set yourself up for the day, especially if you're having a solo day and doing self care. And I love saying the self love mantra of the day. So, this is the outfit that I will be wearing for today. I still haven't decided if I will be going out because it's going to be so hot today. But I think just staying at home will be fun. My hair got a bit messy again putting on my shirt. But I've done my makeup very minimal today. Doesn't look as minimal just because it's purple, which is a bit brighter against my skin tone. But I want to try some of the new makeup that I got. And I don't really use that many products, so I say minimal. And it's like a minimal look. But this is the outfit that I will be wearing. It's just one of my favorite skirts that I wore on my birthday last year, and this sort of top that's a little more recent that I haven't gotten a chance to wear as many times. So that is the outfit. The sunlight is so beautiful right now in the mornings, especially in the summer. So I feel like a form of self-care is also just waking up early and having a good sleep schedule when you can. Which is funny because although I got a lot of sleep, I slept pretty early in like mid-evening afternoon. But usually I like to wake up early to enjoy the sunlight, and it just looks so beautiful and it's so relaxing. And one of the best parts of my day is just sitting somewhere and just being. I call it sit and be, and that is a form of self-care. My earrings and rings of the day. So, a big part of my morning, if I can, is making a matcha with a traditional bamboo set with a whisk. And it's something that I find relaxing and a hobby of mine, of something I've loved for probably my entire life. I love the flavor of matcha, and making it is very relaxing. And when I do drink it, I only try to drink it when I'm also relaxing or doing something that's not stressful, so that I associate it with calm feelings. And a good thing about matcha is that it has health benefits and it has L-theanine. So it has slow absorption of caffeine, so there's no jitters, and it has like steady energy for most of the day for me, and I can even drink it at night, okay? And I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I try to stay away from caffeine. But when you do make matcha, if I don't add in sweeteners or sugars or milk with sugars, because I try to avoid sugar in most of my diet, especially in the past couple of years, I think it's something that is self care that's good for you physically, mentally, and even emotionally and mentally when you're making it. So I think I'm going to show you my routine with the traditional bamboo whisk, although I have more faster, almost convenient methods with my plastic whisk when I'm using milk in it or some type of added ingredient. And I also have my milk frother, which is a handheld frother, which I use for other things more often now. But they're both pretty convenient. And I just thought that the sign right here was kind of funny because, as you can see, it is a little makeshift cafe. If you can see, it says Coastal, let's see, Beach Cafe, because I had done a little makeshift cafe at my home for my friend that was going away for another program somewhere in the US, and I thought it'd be cute to do that, and that's still been up because I just thought it looks cute next to the little coffee station, which I don't use often. So yeah, let's get started. So this is my traditional set that I got as a end of semester on my first year, possibly I think it was my first year of college. It's completed, so I got that from my mother. And I have a new matcha that I've been using. It's the ceremonial matcha by Rishi, and I like it because I actually had tried this. It was the one that they use at Capital One Cafe. My friend and I had gone together and we asked them before she left for her program for the fall. We asked what kind of matcha they use, and they said they use Rishi. And they have two kinds, but I was able to get the ceremonial matcha just to try it out because I wasn't sure which one they had used, but it tastes almost exactly, so I feel like you can't really go wrong too much, but I think this one is good. There's this little duck or some type of bird that holds the bamboo spoon that I think just is so whimsical and adorable and adds little joy when I'm making things. And then I have the towel that covers everything because matcha can stain and it will stain if you don't take it out. And although I don't use sugar, I just got this vanilla syrup that does have added sugar. But I thought because it's like self-care, I would treat myself because sometimes it's about balance and not completely cutting yourself off from sugar because it can just make you feel a bit deprived of the things that you enjoy and flavors you enjoy once in a while. And I have this holder for my wrists, and they have traditional names, but I don't remember exactly which one is which. And then this is my setup, and I will show you how I make my matcha. So usually for my matcha, I do 6 ounces of water and a couple scoops of matcha powder. But because I'm using the Rishi matcha, I found that 4 ounces of water with 2 ounces of milk, ice, because I like it ice, is good. So what I do is I just measure out around 4 ounces, maybe a little bit more. And then I heat this up. Usually if I'm soaking my whisk, I will add a little bit more because it does evaporate in the microwave, so I do around that much. And then I just microwave it so I can soak this whisk. So while the water is microwaving, I just put the whisk into this measuring cup instead of the bowl because I think it just makes the water a bit higher so that it soaks it more. And then I just transfer it into the bowl, which I'll show you. And right now you can see I have my plastic whisk in this whenever I do cold foam matcha, which I don't do that often. And this is the matcha I said I use often, but right now, but this is the one I usually use. This is the Costco matcha. I think it's called Sencha. Actually, there's no more left, as you can see. But I thought there was. I have a bag, so I just refill that, which came with the set. And I can show you what the bag looks like. That's actually my go-to matcha, because even though it's in bulk and from Costco, I think it tastes pretty earthy and strong, which is how I like it. So I end up using less matcha than the one right here for the amount of water that I use for the ratio. This is the matcha I use from Costco usually. This is my go-to. It's affordable, and as you can see, it is very large compared to these little containers, So I just keep refilling it to keep it fresh and keep it in the fridge. And I keep this packet in the fridge as well. So you can just carefully pour in the hot water into the measuring cup. And it's good not to have the hot water, or when you're rinsing it, touch the black line or above, because it can get moldy. So I'm always careful about that. I like to sip the matcha because I think it makes it a little bit easier, but this isn't necessary if you don't have one. I do about 1, 2, around 3 to 4 scoops, but since my scoops were a little bit big for this particular matcha, I might just do more like 3.5. I find that it's not very strong tasting without adding sugar or some type of simple syrup, which is what I used when I went to Capital One. And when I put vanilla for the first time in a matcha at Capital One, it tasted really good, which is another way to make it sweeter. So although I don't really drink sweet matcha, I thought that maybe using this Chirani vanilla syrup would enhance the flavor, because I find it to be a bit more of a mild matcha. And it's okay if that's the taste you're going for, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend if you're looking for something very strong, unless you're using a lot more than I am. So you can just sift it through. Usually I would shake it a bit while doing this, but I am using one hand currently. And then you can see the little clumps that would form. That would be a lot harder to get out without the sifter. But again, it's not really necessary if you don't have the oops. Yeah, this is a lot harder with one hand. Usually I'm much more efficient. So I will just finish that up. So now that the powder has been sifted, I like to put this whisk on the side in the holder and pour just about maybe less than an ounce of water in to make sort of a thick paste. And as you can see with this, it has sort of bloomed, which means that it's ready and it won't break because the hot water has helped with that. And I'm just going to whisk a little bit. I try not to really scrape along the bottom because I know that can shorten the lifespan of your whisk, but I'll just do it gently since we don't have much water. You can just do a W or M sort of motion in fast. It's a bit hard to show how fast I usually use it, but with one hand, trying my best just to show the motion. So you just go back and forth. And I notice with the proper technique with my hand, usually, I don't really get tired because I like to do it for a very long time. Just because I think I just really enjoy it and it makes it less lumpy. So I think I may have added a little bit too much water or not enough matcha, because it doesn't look that much of a paste. I think with this matcha I always end up using less because it is a chin and there's just not as much. But as long as the ratio is mostly correct, it'll end up tasting the same, because no one likes a watery matcha. Okay. And I'll just pour the rest of my water in. I guess the paste did not really form, but this is good to help get out the clumps either way. So whenever I don't do the ratio as accurately, still works out. So I like to do it for a minute and around 22 seconds. So you'll start to see little bubbles form. And usually the bubbles are a little bit smaller. A good matcha has little bubbles, but I'm a bit more focused on filming than making my matcha today. But either way, it'll still end up tasting relatively the same. Let me try to actually do it properly. Don't want to shake it too much. So personally, especially in the summer, I like iced matchas, and I think it sort of enhances the right type of flavor that I'm trying to go for. But hot matchas are especially nice in fall or winter, especially when you go to cafes that have the little latte art. But for the taste, I'm more of an iced person just because I like my drinks cold. I always add an ice cube to my matcha just to cool it down because I've had a bad experience with my favorite mason jar. It shattered, the bottom just completely fell off. So I like to make sure that that doesn't happen because I was like, where did the bottom go? And where is all the matcha going? And I looked down and it had completely shattered. It had shattered in a circle of the bottom. So I just do that just to make sure that it is cooled down properly because that was an experience. So I just have this oat milk that I use. I like the Oatly Barista Edition oat milk. I feel like it's one of the best ones for a neutral taste, and I really like oat milk in matchas compared to whole milk. And I really only use or drink whole milk when I want a drink or something to be creamier or a bit sweeter when I don't add sugar. And I have this frother that does, as you can see, hot and cold, and I just have the milk becoming sort of a cold foam. Because I noticed when you actually foam up milk, it makes it a bit sweeter, especially whole milk. It's almost like creamer without the added sugar, so I think that's nice. And this is, to me, an indulgence because there is added sugar in this. Quite a lot for oat milk, but I don't use much. And I really only use it for this brand, which I use only on occasion. And as you can see, it's very quick. I'm just going to close that up. And now it's ready to be poured on top. Going to use this Torani vanilla syrup. It has this little convenient spout, which is why I liked it, and it's not too big of a size because I don't use sweetener syrups often. So I'm just gonna add a tiny bit. I don't think I'm gonna measure this, just a little bit. Maybe that much for now, just to try it out. The milk does sweeten it a little bit, and then I'm gonna give it a mix. And that is how I make my matchas, and I'll give it a test. So I'm just gonna try it now. I haven't tried it with the vanilla syrup yet. It tastes really good, but not as sweetened as usual. I think I didn't add enough of the syrup, so I'm gonna add some more and see how it is. So I tested it out. It is a bit sweeter, but I'm gonna let the sort of syrup meld into the matcha a little bit and sort of get incorporated, because I noticed even when I use simple syrup, it wouldn't really taste right or the same way as Capital One until you waited a couple of minutes. So I'm just gonna wait. I did test it out and it still tasted good, but not exactly how I thought it would taste and not quite the same. So I think either I just need to add more, but I'm hesitant to add too much at a time. But I have tried vanilla syrup once or twice in coffee, which I don't usually get, and I feel like maybe the flavor is just a bit stronger in coffee than in matcha because I see people use not that much in coffee, so perhaps it just gets incorporated a lot faster. I'm going to see again because I really want to perfect this recipe, especially the first time, so I can keep using the ingredients for the best matcha possible. I just tried it again and it's a lot sweeter and it tastes really good, but I can't really taste the matcha flavor. So I'm thinking maybe it just doesn't incorporate well, even though it's the same matcha, so maybe it might be the syrup and not the matcha. Or there isn't enough matcha, I'm not quite sure. I'm just thinking it's the syrup because it just tastes like simple syrup, which is the only sweetener I really use when I'm using this matcha because I think it just tastes better with sweetener, which is unfortunate, but still okay because it's more like a sweet treat that I don't drink every single day or just more occasionally or rarely whenever I want something just that tastes similar to the cafe one. I just saw that there are chocolate donuts too in this really cute container, and I realized it's from the event that I went to yesterday. And it really seems like I'm going to be eating a lot more sugar than I usually do. Because although I don't have to eat it, it looks so, well, adorable. And so, that means I kind of have to snack on it. So I think incorporating cute little things that you can do in your everyday life is a form of self care and really important on a solo date to make it more practical, like just putting something like a treat or any type of food on a cute plate. I have this one that I like to use. It has like bows and little flowers and it has sort of a vintage vibe. And I just think that it just makes it a little more fun and exciting. Besides that, there's a donut on there. That's not what it usually is. It would be some type of um, like avocado toast or a vegetable. So not as exciting. But it actually makes eating those vegetables more exciting because you end up sort of enjoying it more, and sometimes you don't even want a donut. You just feel like, I really want those avocado toast. Maybe adding some tomatoes on and some salt and pepper and just making it a little bit more than every day might help with your self-care in a way that's more practical and healthy for you. But of course, I want to show that you can have your sort of sweet treats and indulgences without feeling bad about it or feeling like you can't have it or necessarily thinking that you have to have those things to be able to have self care if that's not what you want to do. I couldn't quite finish the donut. I didn't eat even half, it's a little bit more than half, but it was really nice to eat something that was a bit different than I usually do. So I'm just in the sunroom right now enjoying my matcha and taking in the sunlight of the morning. And I think a big part of self-care is learning how to enjoy the company with yourself. And you're not necessarily alone. To me, I think you're with yourself, and the most important relationship you have is with yourself. So that's really important that you know how to find ways to recharge and enjoy spending time with yourself and taking care of yourself as best as you can, especially through life. And I think some fun ways you can do that is if you can't sit outside, sitting somewhere with a little sunlight, or when you're able to get outside, I like to do picnics under the tree, not even with food, maybe a book and just getting away from screens and devices, which really helps. And I just love being out here. So if I don't end up being able to go to the city today, depending on the weather, and if I'll be able to show that, I'll likely be able to do another video of touring the cities around me or the main big city I have of the area. And I think that that is another form of self care and would be a really good idea for a solo date, because I think a lot of people still have to learn how to do things that they might find a little bit awkward or odd to be doing alone, that I find very natural to be doing alone. I think my default is doing everything solo and alone, just because I find the most peace when I'm by myself, unless I'm with very close friends, just because I am more of an introvert person in my thinking in mind, and I really like to recharge by being alone. So I always find it perfect that you can go anywhere you want at any time based on how you feel and your schedule when you get to do things alone. And I think it's very important to build a good relationship with yourself. And by spending time alone, that really helps. And I think if I can't end up going to the city or showing that part of my day today, I might share some tips of how I do self care that I find to be very relaxing, that is actually manageable to do, and I think a bit easier. And I like to do things that are more practical that you can actually do instead of having to do all these things that you see all the time. Which, if people like that or enjoy that, that's perfectly okay. But to me, I don't think it's as possible or realistic, just because I want it to be more relaxing than just steps that you have to do that you think that will help you. I like to make it more personalized for me. So I might even make a separate video on that if that would be interesting. And actually, one of the main video ideas that I want to do is on something I call life aesthetic. So if that is something that would be interesting, I will likely make a video about it, because that's something that I have a lot of personal experience doing, and it's something that's very important to me. So I would love to make a video on it. And that was actually one of my first ideas. And that would be more of a sit down video with some other footage to sort of show examples. It would be more of a, not necessarily how to or step, because it's not a very linear process, but that's just something that I think would be a bit more informational and educational in a different way than today. And yeah. So, some self care tips that I have that I like to do personally is I enjoy reading. So, finding somewhere to read really helps with doing things solo. If you feel a bit awkward, you can read. If you don't want to look like you're on your phone, you can just bring an actual book or Kindle with you, which I don't really have a problem with now that I've learned it's okay to be in public and doing whatever you want. I think it was less about being alone and more just like public spaces and like social anxiety almost. Although that doesn't as affect me anymore. And I think another thing that you can do is you can take walks, whether that's a public park that you have or a garden. A good idea during when the weather is a bit cooler but not too cold outside, and even taking winter walks when it's refreshing and you're stuck inside with the snow might be nice, when there's light snow. And if you're in an area that's more warm, taking advantage of the spring. And if you have to be indoors, finding somewhere that's nice to walk around. Oops, even if you're not really doing anything or not really shopping, if it's at a mall or plaza, that's perfectly fine as long as you get your walk in. So I think it can be very peaceful and relaxing, which is, I think, exactly what people need, especially in life and right now. And I think that another good thing is how it allows you to have movement. And I know that, at least for me, but I think this applies to most people, movement really helps me feel better, not just mentally, but physically. It makes me have like a boost of good feelings and energy as long as it's not too rigorous. I think another thing that is another form of self care that people would think is less self care and more sort of maintenance is exercise and working out. I feel like it can actually be really fun if you find a routine that you like. I personally love working out at home. I do currently go to the gym sometimes if I'm not working out at home and making use of the membership. But I especially love doing Pilates at home. All you have to do, or at least for me, is follow videos you can find on YouTube. I just watch random ones that I like and I'll go back to, but I always love to switch it up so that you don't get bored. And you can incorporate your favorite exercise and movement. So I really think it's about movement and making you feel better than certain exercises or doing things a certain way. If that isn't necessarily your goal, I think any type of movement is better than no movement. And I do a lot of walking when I have to go places for my school or my work, or when I'm going around the cities. And I think that oh, another good way that you could get into lost my train of thought there. Another good way I think is very helpful to have in your life that incorporates self-care and soul dates, but also your sort of spiritual needs is having a personal hobby that you're passionate about. For example, I really love all kinds of art, not just the ones like painting and drawing, but photography and visual mediums and crafting and DIYs or all different sorts of things from design of sets or the home or architecture. I love architecture and I love looking at buildings and just walking by them or being in cars and incorporating your interest into some type of hobby that you can do almost anywhere, or if you have to be specifically somewhere, being able to find a place that you can get to those places, which can be, I know, a bit more difficult, but might give you a good idea of what location you might want to visit or possibly live in if you're moving. And I think a good way to find this is sort of to think of a happy memory that you have and think about what made you feel happy during that and sort of try to think of what feeling when you do things or when you look at things. You see it online passively, you see it when you're in stores. What makes you feel happy or feel like you want to be doing that you think would make you happy when doing that? And I know that can be very vague, but at the same time, I'm more of a visualization person, so I find little helpful prompts like that to be the most helpful for me. But these are all things that I've sort of known my entire life, so I sort of have to verbalize it to be able to help everyone figure out their own personal hobby.
And there's a lot of creators, especially on YouTube or Instagram and other platforms, and in film or television, and they have their own sort of personal hobby that sort of makes them who they are. And I think it's really important not to give up your personal hobby for anybody else and to sort of live as if you are alone or if you're in a relationship single, in only the sense that you have a life and you should do all your routines and basic life needs first, and whatever time you have and want to make for other people, because you really have to think about how you're taking care of yourself and if you're feeling fulfilled, because simply doing things for yourself but not doing things that fulfill sort of your soul and spirit isn't really going to help you, because you won't feel energized, you won't feel recharged and reset. And it's really just living almost like a half life, at least to me. And that's something that I find really important, that I try to protect my peace and energy. So, a big part of self care and solo dates is learning how to protect your boundaries and your peace, and being able to say, I want to be alone when you want to be alone, or when you're trying something out, not letting other people discourage you. And as you can see, it's something that you can do pretty easily at home. But you can also go out and do things. Solo dates are more just doing some type of activity with yourself, and self care is also an activity or something you do mentally or emotionally. So, by incorporating those two things, I think you kind of get the best of both worlds. And that's really a tip that I think is something that I have to share that isn't so general, that I feel like you might already know but didn't feel like you wanted to do, or it was too much work or not something you thought you could do. But I think a personal hobby or sort of passion is something that I relate to a lot, and is something that I want to share with other people so they can sort of think about it. And I don't really have set ways on how to find it. It's just something when you sit alone with yourself, even in a room that's quiet or dark, you can sort of think, this is what makes me passionate, this is what it is. Sometimes you just have a feeling and you don't quite know what it is, but maybe by looking at pictures online, Pinterest online, YouTube, whatever media you have, films, you might see things that spark an interest that you didn't even know about, not something you've encountered, but is just calling to you. And that's actually how I find a lot of my passions. I didn't really know much about it, but when I saw it, I was just like, that's for me. That's something I want to try. So that's why I've tried so many different hobbies, but a lot of them have stuck because that's truly what was calling.
So hopefully that was helpful for you, or it made you rehear something that you've always known and motivated you to go and do whatever it is. I plan on showing the cities around me, or the big main city, if I can, in another video or this one. And I just have to make some space. But if not, it'll always be for next time or in another video. But hopefully I'll be able to get some small clips of just today, and then more clips for a different day, because I think it'd be really fun to show how you can do a full-on solo date out in a city by yourself, and sort of how I like to relax in some of my spots that I like to go to, and there's always more to explore. Something I like to do, especially on days that I have off from different things, is a self care journal or gratitude journal. I just finished this pink one right here, and I'm starting on this linen one. It's the same one, and you can see that it's like a book, and there's just guided prompts that you can do.
and I really liked it, so that's why I got two. And I'm probably gonna get more if I don't decide to do a different kind of journal. I have multiple journals. I started a couple years ago consistently, maybe like 2 years, or actually, yes, two. And I usually do them a lot in the summer and on the days I have off. And it just shows you, at least in this one, like goals, affirmations, what you're grateful for, which I find really important to practice gratitude, because I feel like that's not something that everyone sits down for, and I feel like it really helps you appreciate your life more, whatever you have going on, what you can improve upon and highlight of the day, which I try to keep positive. And right here, I like that there's some empty space that goes along with the journal prompt of the day, which in this one is very vague, but it says, if you're brave enough, where do you want to begin? And it's sort of a self improvement, goals oriented journal. So I usually go based off the prompts. I'll just incorporate what I wrote in the last one to this one, and sometimes I don't do it every single day if it's not a relaxing day. So I just write based on my sort of goals for my career path and school and job and work and life and whatever values and goals I had. And at the beginning, they have like in the front, they have like goals that you can put in, your top 3 goals, and of what you want for the next, it's about 13 weeks of the journal. And I just use that, and um it's really pretty. I love like the linen material. You can just find this online. And I have my pen. I like to use the Energel pens. I find it to be, it does dry relatively quick, but not as quick as some pens like ballpoints. But I love how black the ink is, and when it is flowing well, it does write pretty nice. And art journals where you draw and write little captions of where it was, with maybe you take a picture or you're there in real life, and you do it in the moment if you have a place to sit or stand. And at least for the junk journals, I try not to think too much about how it looks and make it visually appealing for anybody else or even for me, and just focus on the content and how relaxing it is, and knowing that I'm mainly going to be the one looking at it. And also, I think you can make it neat and pleasant because it's just sort of soothing to make things neat. But I try not to think too much about how it's going to look and focus on a certain aesthetic or making it look a certain way, because I feel like most of the fun is making it look neat and organized, but also just very fluid and being creative with it. So, this was my morning routine of self care and solo dates. So, full outfit of the day, I have my hat on because I decided I am going into the city even though it's very hot and it is a bit later in the day because I wasn't sure. But this is just the full outfit with my hat and cardigan, and I will show you my shoes.